Hey everybody, welcome to
Hello.
Britpops React. We've got a bit of an informational video for you today. That is the Apollo 13 space mission disaster, hour by hour. Probably know it from a high level, but certainly not for hour by hour. And we've done the recent one with Challenger, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And I don't know, it was really informal, wasn't it? We found out quite a lot about things that...
Informal or informative?
Informative, sorry, yes, that's the right word. That, there was lots going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of recommendations that were ignored and all sorts. So it'd be interesting to watch this one.
Yep, okie doke. This one has been requested by
Amanda
A, who also asked us to check out the Challenger one. So carrying on a theme, I see, for space disasters this time.
Yeah, but
Apollo 13.
very good, very informative.
Yeah.
Should we
informative.
say?
We're informal. The information is informative.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. All right, mate.
Yeah. Bit like my
Apollo
useless
13.
brain sometimes, but there you go. All right, let's get into this one.
A month prior to takeoff. It's been less than a year since the U.S. put a man on the moon, and astronaut Neil Armstrong said those words. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The U.S. wants to do it again and perhaps have an astronaut say, "This is another small step for man," although admittedly it won't be the same kind of leap for mankind. That shows how little interest the U.S. public is paying to the Apollo 13 mission. When Apollo 11 took off on July 16, 1969, the entire world was watching. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins would become household names for many years to come. The images of them walking on the moon would forever be implanted into people's minds, and when Armstrong said the Eagle has landed, people all over the globe were half-baked on beer at their house parties, celebrating as if they'd just won the lottery. Things were not exactly the same when the Apollo 13 mission was announced. If you'd have picked up a newspaper in 1970, you'd have had to turn a fair few pages to read about the mission. It seemed that the hard-to-please public was not that impressed with spaceflight anymore, and you can bet that not many people knew the names of the astronauts James A. Lovell Jr., John L. Swigert Jr., and Fred W. Hayes Jr. But while the U.S. public is less interested in these guys, at this point in time, their mission is about to break new ground. People will flock together in their living rooms again, but there won't be much of a party atmosphere this time. That's because something terrible was about to happen. It has to be said, though, that the mission's horrific nature will make people interested in spaceflight again. Hour 0. As the crew's readying for takeoff, the families and relatives of all three men are excited but nervous. The astronaut Jack Swigert shouldn't have even been there. He's just replaced another astronaut due to the other guy coming down with rubella, aka German measles. This is the first thing that has gone wrong. Swigert at least doesn't have a wife at home or any children to worry about. That can't be said for Fred Hayes, who, like Swigert, has never been to space before. Hayes' 9-year-old son, Stephen, doesn't quite understand the implications of what his daddy is doing, although his pregnant wife certainly is feeling the pressure. In a few days from now, she's going to be rubbing that bump on her stomach, wondering if in years to come she's going to have to explain to this child why she never talked her husband out of going on that mission. After all, she is well aware of the dangers involved in sending humans to space. What she doesn't know is that they are traveling in what is essentially a bomb. As for the commander of the mission, Jim Lovell, you could say he has more to lose than everyone. He has 4 kids with his high school sweetheart, Marilyn. Their daughter, Barbara, is 17, and she understands the gravity of the situation, pun intended. Their son, James, is 15, Susan is 12, and Jeffrey is just 4. The entire family will soon hear that their beloved husband and father might freeze to death or die slowly as his oxygen runs out. It's going to be a hellish few days for all of them. Everyone except the 4-year-old knows what happened in February 1967 when Apollo 1, supposed to be the first spacecraft flown into space with the intention of landing on the moon, didn't quite get there. All 3 men were incinerated in the cabin during a launch rehearsal. With spaceflight, there are literally a million things that can go wrong, perhaps no more devastatingly exemplified than in the 1986 space disaster, when 7 U.S. astronauts died just 73 seconds after takeoff. In short, the families of these 3 men in Apollo 13 are proud as hell, but right now, their nerves are as frayed as Charles Manson's mind. Hour 1. The Saturn V rocket they're sitting in at the Kennedy Space Center is about to take off. Mission Control does the countdown. 10, 9, 8, ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And we have liftoff. The time is 2:13 Eastern. Destination the moon, or more specifically, the Fra Mauro crater area. 200,000 people who've come to watch the liftoff feel the ground shake as the
200,000.
160 million horsepower beast leaves for the skies. That's not a bad turnout, but nothing compared to the 2 million that were there when Apollo 11 lifted off. People watching the event on television near Mission Control say the Saturn V, building up to 7.6 million pounds of thrust, has cleared the tower. Another voice says, "This is Mission Control, Houston. We appear to have a good first stage at this point." People are told the trajectory is looking just fine as the rocket powers on. Mission Control lets them know that 1.2 miles into the sky, the spacecraft is traveling at 1,500 feet per second. At home, the men's families jump for joy, but they don't know that something isn't quite right up there. At about 5.5 minutes, the center engine of the S2 stage shuts down. This isn't good at all. It shut down 2 minutes early. It means that the remaining 4 engines have to burn 34 seconds longer than has been planned, and that the S4B third stage engine has to burn 9 seconds longer. That all has to happen for Apollo 13 to get into orbit. Mission Control isn't happy, but everyone knows that there will always be something that doesn't go exactly to plan. They're just hoping that this little glitch will be the worst thing that happens on the mission.
Can't refuel in space, can
It's
you?
not
That's
by
the
a long shot, but the next few hours and the hours after are all smooth sailing for the crew and ground control. Hour 30. The 3 astronauts are fooling around, talking about their appearance while doing a bit of facial grooming. Jack Swigert makes a joke, saying something along the lines of "hello to all the girls." The mood is good among the men. They're told some golf scores, and then Jack goes into detail about how they get rid of their pee in the spacecraft. The transmission between the guys is what's called the Capcom, or the capsule communication. The astronauts on Earth who keep in touch with the crew all the time. They take the Capcom job in shifts. Hour 46. Nothing major is happening right now. At some point, a guy named Joe Kerwin, who's the main capsule communicator at this point, reports, "The spacecraft is in real good shape as far as we are concerned. We're bored to tears down here." Just after he says that, the master alarm sounds and scares the hell out of everyone. It's a false alarm, though. The guys then listen to a song as Kerwin winds them up by sarcastically telling them space looks great and that they have all the comforts of home. He's well aware that space travel is extremely uncomfortable. Hour 47. The crew talks about a problem with the hydrogen tank, after which they discuss changing their flight plan. There's also a problem with the command module, but it's nothing to write home about. The mission's still going according to plan. Hour 52. The new Capcom guy, Vance Brand, jokes with the crew. Everything looks normal, so they can afford to get
Jokes.
around.
There's too many
Right now,
jokes.
they're traveling at 2,323.4 miles per hour, and they're about 170,000 miles from where they took off.
2,000
Hour
miles an
55. Things are so under control that the crew starts a live TV broadcast for the folks back on Earth. As interesting as this should be, quite a lot of TV stations are not even showing it. It's as if people just aren't interested in space anymore. Hayes tells the people at home how they sleep and how they drink water. These guys tease each other, as they always seem to, and then they put on the song "Willow Weep for Me." They're making space travel look like a walk in the park, albeit something you wouldn't want to do if you were claustrophobic. At 55 hours and 45 minutes, Hayes goes up behind Lovell with a repress valve scaring the hell out of him. Lovell tells the new Capcom, "Every time he does that, my heart jumps into my mouth." It's at this point that the TV transmission ends. Lovell is the one who signs off, telling people back home, "This is the crew of the Apollo 13, wishing everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius and get back for a pleasant evening in Odyssey. Good night." Aquarius is the lunar module, and Odyssey is the command module.
Okay.
We'll talk more about this soon. The people down on Earth have just witnessed what looks like a bunch of very smart men acting like teenage kids, pranking and teasing each other all the time. It seems to them that space travel isn't frightening at all. Hour 56. The crew has just heard an explosion. It sounded like someone hitting a large piece of metal, followed by a crinkling sound, like someone squashing a rather large can of Coke. This is when Swigert says, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here." They look at the oxygen tanks and fuel cells. What they see is alarming. Oxygen tank 2 has little to nothing in it, and oxygen tank 1 looks like it's about to run out. Mission Control responds by saying this is likely not what's happening. They say the gauge readings might be faulty. Lovell explains that he's pretty sure he can see gas leaking out of the hatch. It's not quite panic station time yet, but something is wrong. And it doesn't seem to be a minor something like the earlier issues. This is serious. Lovell says, "We're venting something out into space. It's a gas of some sort." What they don't know just yet is that there's been a short circuit in oxygen tank 2, which basically ignited a bomb. It exploded when Swigert started what's called the stir, which stirs the contents of the tank. And this caused a 13-foot panel to blow off the service module. The two main parts of the Apollo spacecraft are the command module and the service module. The command module is where the cabin is and where the crew lives. It's where much of the equipment is and where many controls and displays are. This is a cone shape. The service module is where they store lots of equipment, but it's also where they get propulsion from and electrical power. It's shaped like a cylinder. They're both connected by a kind of umbilical cord. As for what's gone wrong, it'll become known that there was a design error. You see, the command and service modules were supposed to operate at 28 volts, but years before these guys took off, when tests were happening at the Kennedy Space Center, it was decided that 65 volts would be better, so engineers were told to redesign the components to run at both levels of voltage. So far so good, but the problem was the oxygen tanks. These are not only for the men to breathe, but to also help run the fuel cells that give power to all the spacecraft's systems. So in short, there's a thermostat in those oxygen tanks to ensure that the temperature inside them is regulated. But the company that made the thermostats had not gotten the memo about the new voltage change. This might not have been such a big issue if it weren't for the fact that during the design stage of the tank, someone had dropped tank number 2. But as it didn't seem damaged and did fine during further tests, it ended up going to space with the other tanks. Nonetheless, after it had been put inside Apollo 13, it wouldn't empty during some other tests. That's because when it had been dropped, the instrument that did the emptying had been damaged. Technicians managed to find a way to make things right, but by doing so, they heated up the tank so much that some of the insulated wires were damaged. If that makes a little sense to you, don't worry. You can't all be rocket scientists. All you really need to know is that Apollo 13 left Earth with an unstable tank inside it, making it a flying bomb. When Swigert was ordered by Mission Control to stir the contents of the tanks by hitting the stir button, what he or no one else could have known was that the previously damaged insulation wiring caused a spark. We don't need to tell you that a spark inside an oxygen tank is generally not a good thing. The oxygen fed the fire, and the pressure became so much that the tank exploded, wrecking not just it, but many of the things inside the service module. The 3 astronauts were now 200,000 miles from home in a spacecraft that was missing some of its vital parts. Hour 57. The Capcom, now Jack Lausma, tells the crew that the oxygen tank is leaking badly. He tells them it's slowly going to zero, and we're starting to think about the LM lifeboat. Swigert replies, "That's what we've been thinking about too." Okay, we should explain something else. The LM means lunar module. This is the part of the spacecraft that's supposed to ferry the astronauts to the moon. It's connected to the command and service modules. It was the part of Apollo 11 that you saw sitting on the moon, or landed in a movie production studio for some of you wild-eyed people. In this case, the astronauts are thinking they could use it as a kind of lifeboat. It's never been done before, but hey, without electricity, they'll either freeze to death up there, or without oxygen, they'll slowly move toward that thing we call brain death. The mission is aborted. It's now time to think about getting home. But with so little power, they have to power down the command module. It'll get very cold in there very soon. Even though escaping in a lifeboat doesn't sound so safe, the astronauts seem to be taking it all in stride. They later say they weren't thinking about death, but just getting the job done. Much more is about to go wrong, though. Hour 58. Lovell jokingly tells Mission Control that he wasn't expecting to return to Earth so soon. No one laughs. His wife is now at home, worried out of her mind. She's been informed about the problems, and she knows he and the others have to make an emergency return. It's fortunate for the men that the explosion didn't happen on the way back home, because then there wouldn't have been a lunar module to use. They all would have died without a doubt. But even now, things are looking grim. No one has ever tried anything like this before. Hour 59. The crew makes their way to the lunar module. Given that they now only have 15 minutes to get out of the command module, the power is almost gone, and no power means death. Hayes and Lovell float through the tunnel to the lunar module while Swigert stays behind to ensure everything is turned off. There are a few things they have to bear in mind. The lunar module is only supposed to have a 45-hour lifetime, but they need at least 90 hours. They should have enough oxygen, and even if the tank runs out, there are 2 backpacks full of oxygen that were supposed to be used for walking on the moon. There are also backup packs of oxygen for those packs. Food is a concern, or a lack thereof, but water and temperature are a much bigger concern. They don't have much of either. Still, if they don't power down, they won't have the power to get back to Earth. That's why all non-critical functions are turned off. Hour 61. It seems the men are in good spirits. Lausma, who's still Capcom, teases Lovell, telling him not to worry, this is all just a training exercise. Hour 67. The men are informed that President Nixon has been told about what's going on. Mission Control is currently in talks with the White House. When Nixon is asked if he'll listen to updates, he responds with, "Yeah, go ahead and throw it to me." Hour 68. Press conferences are held, and the general public now knows there's been an explosion and the astronauts have no choice but to come back. It's about this time that Lovell is heard saying there probably won't be a lunar mission for a long time. Another major problem is the course they're going to take. They were supposed to land on the moon and then go home. Going straight back was never on anyone's mind. The command module navigational platform has been transferred to the lunar module, but that doesn't mean they can easily verify where they are. They believe that the service propulsion system on the command module that could have them thrust back is now broken, so they decide to go around the moon and come back that way rather than just thrust back. They're literally going to swing around the moon. Space isn't the kind of place you can just do a U-turn, so this is the better option. They have the lunar module's descent propulsion system, but the crew and ground control now have to make a lot of difficult calculations. It's fortunate that before Lovell left the command module, he copied down all the important information from the module's guidance system. They will need to do another burn once they're around the moon. If they aren't able to do this, for some reason they'll go on a different trajectory and miss the Earth by thousands of miles. Also, when they do that flight around the moon, they'll have no contact with the people on Earth. But the good news is, during this quiet time, they look out of the windows in awe, snapping pictures like space tourists. Hour 79. It's now or never. NASA has chosen a 4-minute burn, which will shave 12 hours off the flight and hopefully land them in the Pacific Ocean. Hour 80. Lovell's family is at home, now joined by the astronauts Pete Conrad, Buzz Aldrin, and Neil Armstrong. Hour 81. Lovell talks about food and water again. The crew decides that their best chance of surviving is if they consume 1/5 of their normal intake. They'll eat hot dogs and wet pack food. They know they'll become severely dehydrated, but there's nothing they can do about that. They can only drink just 0.2 liters of water a day if they want to make it back home alive. The entire crew will lose a total of 31.5 pounds on this return trip. Hayes even develops a urinary tract infection. The men have already decided not to drink their pee or even throw it out into space. They put it in bags, believing that they could upset their trajectory if they throw it out. Hour 82. The men are freezing. It's now 38 degrees Fahrenheit. It's dark and they're hungry and thirsty. They think about putting on their spacesuits, but that'll make them too hot, so they just use anything they can find to cover themselves. They also slip on their lunar boots, which at least warms up their feet. Hour 85. During a press conference, NASA explains that it's worried about what consumables are left and says the rest of the journey is not going to be comfortable at all. Hour 90. Perhaps to cheer the guys up, the new Capcom asks Swigert about the new income tax rule when you're out of the country for a certain amount of time. It's just a joke, it helps with the men's morale. Hour 93. The lunar module is only supposed to carry 2 people. What that means is the canisters inside that absorb gas in the air won't absorb enough of it. This could lead to a dangerous buildup of carbon dioxide. It doesn't help that the command module uses square canisters, but the lunar module used round canisters, so they can't take the canisters from the command module and put them in the lunar module. This is a matter of life or death. The men put their heads together, and with the help of ground control, they build new canisters out of plastic bags, cardboard, and bits from a lunar suit, as well as a bunch of tape. It works. The CO2 levels go right down. Hour 118. Lovell asks about the re-entry procedure. The reply is, "Roger that, we're trying to get the procedures to you right now." It'll be a few hours before they get the timeline and the sequence of events that are going to happen. Lovell waits a minute and explains that he's not a happy man. He's just found some hot dogs, but they're so cold that they're frozen. What's important here is that when they try to power the command module back up for re-entry, it'll be a completely unique operation. There are no procedures for this since no one has ever thought such a thing would happen. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of brains to figure out how to proceed with the re-entry. Staff on the ground work through the night running the simulators to better understand how to perform the re-entry. As NASA says at a press conference, they've tried to run everything they've asked the crew to do through their simulators. Everything that is non-normal, says NASA. Back in space, the men have thrown away the rule book, so to speak. They've never powered down a command module in space, and they've never powered one back up either. They need to re-enter since the lunar module will burn up on re-entry as it doesn't have a heat shield. It also isn't built for landing in the ocean. Hour 123. Mission Control gives Lovell the green light to fully power up the lunar module. This will raise the cabin temperature and also restart the lunar module's guidance computers. Hour 125. Lovell says they now have no water left. That's not good, but he has to grit his teeth and listen to the re-entry checklist. Soon after, he tells the other 2 guys what's going to happen. Hour 132. Swigert now tells the new Capcom guy that it's too cold to get any sleep. He's very tired now and thirsty, but no one's complaining. He just hopes they'll get home. Hour 138. The damaged service module is jettisoned. This is when they see just how much damage was done during the explosion for the first time. All the men realize how lucky they are to be alive. Minutes later, Swigert thanks Mission Control. Many calculations had to be made in quick time to ensure the module left them, and they were able to thrust out of its way. It wasn't easy by any stretch. Hour 141. The lunar module is just about to be jettisoned. They've waited for this, knowing that if it's not literally blown off at the right time and at the right angle, they might hit the ocean and skip like a stone. A mistake here could also mean a very fiery entry, or as Lovell said years later, burning up like a meteor. Down below, the US Navy is waiting to pick the guys up. Hour 142. The public is now glued to their TVs, not just in the US, but all over the world. This has been some trip, a drama of the highest order. Talk about reinvigorating people's interest in spaceflight. It's actually a good day for NASA in terms of marketing. That is, if the guys get back in one piece. The men land in the Pacific without any problems. The world cheers so hard that the thing nearly falls off its axis. Mission Control tells the guys, welcome home. What's more, even with a partly destroyed mothership, their splashdown becomes the second most accurate in the Apollo program, hour 143. President Nixon, tricky dick to some, gets on the line to Lovell. He asks, are you on the line alone? Are the other fellows on too? Yes, sir, says Lovell. Nixon says, getting elected as president was the biggest day of my life, but this one was bigger. He tells them that they'll all get a Medal of Freedom. It's a good day for the astronauts and a good day for Nixon's image. Lovell apologizes for not completing the mission, but Nixon rightly reminds him that they did something even better. They did something that has never been done before. Even so, Lovell's more concerned about his family back home. That's what really matters.
Oh, that's a
he
happy
figured that
ending.
much out
As
when he
far
was
as I'm
hurtling
concerned,
through
that's a happy
space.
ending, 'cause
Now
no
you
one
need to
died.
educate yourself a bit more with 50 surprising facts about space you didn't know. Or have a look at this.
I've just educated myself
A month
lot more
prior-
because, I didn't
takeoff,
realise
then
that.
misregulate.
I thought that was going to end in death. I didn't
Disaster.
realise disaster. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a mission disaster. How awful! But these things, we know these things happen.
Okay, that's interesting, mate. Because that you haven't seen the movie Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton,
I think I
Kevin
did,
Bacon?
but I was a lot younger.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
You know
he
what?
does all right in that. But
I'm sure I have
interesting-
watched Apollo 13
interesting
a long,
film.
long time ago.
Yeah, and obviously it takes you through all those, them building out the tanks and things out of bits and pieces of like a Blue Peter thing, double-sided sticky tape and all that.
It works,
Very washing up liquid bottle. But I mean, again, to go through that and actually make it back with all the things that they had to sort of do, scary indeed. But there you go. Just shows how how man can sort of overcome certain things. There you go. Brilliant one. A good bit of information there. I mean the videos are very funny with the little animated cartoons and stuff, but it gets the message
it's very
through,
well
doesn't it?
done. Yeah, it's by the Infographics Show. If you want to check them out, if you like that type of delivery on historical video. So information rather. I like that.
Well
from
done.
how it was delivered. So
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thanks for sending that one in, and for all your support as always.
yeah, thanks Amanda. We do like those hour by hour things. It does break it down a lot for historical stuff. All right. Thank you to Amanda, as BPT just said. We will be back tomorrow for another reaction. Make sure you join the community if you haven't already. Until tomorrow, it's bye from me.
And it's a lovely goodbye from him. Take care.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye bye.